Evening, everybody. Can you hear me okay?
We can hear you. Can you hear us?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Fabulous.
Yes.
It was just,
Oh, was that him saying it again?
no,
Or is that-
when I go live, it has the 10-second delay there. Okay.
Yeah, please. Because he was sitting over here.
Okay. Okay.
Melody. Okay. Well,
Okay. Is there not our expense?
Thank you. Good evening, welcome to the meeting to order. Albany Public Library Board meeting is 6:02. I am President Trustee Pryor.
Vice President Trustee Gauze.
Paige Barnum, Secretary and Trustee.
Trustee Andrea West.
Trustee Arlene Way.
Trustee Kirsten Broshinsky. Trustee Sarah Masinski.
Trustee Sarah Dallas has an excused absence.
Andrea Nicolai, Executive Director.
Adam Stump, Director of Finance. Sean Smith, Board Treasurer.
Robert Schofield, Counsel of the Board remotely.
Thank you. Trustee Robinson is on her way, so she'll be here momentarily. Do we have any public comment? Okay, the consent agenda, so we'll read that over. Along with the check registry and the capital fund registry. Check registry. Does anyone have any questions regarding the consent agenda? Is there a motion on the floor to accept the consent agenda?
I move that we accept the consent agenda.
Mhm. Okay, we'll go down to the finance memo. I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? No. Trustee Gauze.
Can I ask, simply because I don't know, is there a concern? Like, is there anything that we need to discuss? Or, I mean, just with a no vote, does that mean that there is discussion that needs to be had around why there's a no vote on those? Again, I'm simply asking out of.
No, no, it's just that, she decided, she doesn't want to.
So, when you're voting for, or when you're voting on, an item, there doesn't necessarily need to be an explanation on why someone's voting yes, or an explanation on why someone's voting no.
Okay,
But, because you're newer, if it's curiosity, yeah, you all could probably talk offline. But yeah, there doesn't need to be an explanation for any no votes.
thank you.
Thank you, trustee West. Okay, the finance memo.
Hello, the reports for this meeting cover January 2024, which was 50% of the way through our 2024 fiscal year. The support and revenues were slightly over the modified budget due to fees and sales and interest income trends continuing from prior months. Expenditures overall were in line with the modified budget, with similar trends from prior months continuing between cost categories. Okay, thank you, Sean. Just a couple of quick notes. So our national grid bills for the month of January were about $4,000 less than what they were in January of last year. And building repair costs were elevated in January due primarily to over 35,000 in expenses related to the elevator at Pine Hills. If anyone has any questions on any of the reports, happy to address this. Thank you.
Trustee West.
So I just have a question because I haven't been here. Were the repairs to the elevator at Pine Hills, did we know that we were gonna have to do that ahead of time, or did it break down and then we had to? Was that 35,000 accounted for?
No, this was unexpected. It broke down unexpectedly, and 35,000 is actually just going to be a percentage of what the total cost is going to be.
And so does that mean we're moving money around? How does that impact the budget?
Well, it may mean that certain building repair, sort of routine maintenance that was planned for this fiscal year may be pushed back until next fiscal year. I think that's what it's going to add up to.
Yeah.
And so sorry, so I can play and catch up. So are the conversations taking place in a facilities committee meeting?
No, in this case, it was just the facilities manager who reached out to the vendor and got a quote on the repair, and we had to move forward because, of course, the elevator is critical to service. So
No, I mean, going forward. So as far as how to move the money around and what the recommendation coming out of this, I'm assuming that the recommendation will be coming out of the facilities committee as to how to reallocate those funds, or how to make up for those funds that were unexpectedly used.
in this case, the funds were there. They're in the maintenance and repairs budget line. We always hope that we can use that in a lot of different areas. It just so happens this elevator is being most of that budget, and we have to, as Adam said, push off some of the other repairs that we had hoped to get to this year.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, Adam, so I just had a quick question. You mentioned that 35,000 was a part of the cost. What is the total cost?
We have the full quote yet, Andrea? I don't know that we do.
No, I think it's estimated at approximately 75,000.
But the elevator is currently operational, right?
No, the elevator's out of service. It's been out of service for a couple months. I've included that update in the report, but the fix is scheduled to happen.
You said it's been out of service for a couple of months.
Correct,
This
unfortunately.
wasn't something that just happened and there was emergency that the facilities manager needed to get to because it's been out for months.
No, it was an emergency when it occurred, and that's why. But it just so happens that the nature of this repair, unfortunately, takes months because there was a part that needed to be ordered special. No, I reported the situation in an earlier director's report, but like I said, the budget line is prepared to absorb that. It's just that we have to push off some other routine payments. We can't do it all this week.
Right, I mean, but like the total cost, so you're taking it out in increments, is what it sounds like?
I think the company is billing us as the work progresses.
Yeah, I believe the 35,000 was, it may have been a deposit to get started on the work.
Okay.
And yeah, just to clarify, these are the first set of reports that contain reference to these expenses related to this elevator repair.
Right, that was, what I'll reserve the rest of my comments. Thank you, Adam. I appreciate it.
Sure.
I just have one question in regards to the National Grid bill. Why do you think that it was, 4,000 less than what it was last year?
Well, certainly the LED lighting installation is allowing us to continue saving. Savings were a bit more last month. The rates were higher in January. But still, with those LED lighting installations, we're still counting on seeing savings every month compared to last year, prior years. But the fact that we saved over 10,000 in December and only 4,000 this month, it just speaks to the sort of variability of National Grid bills and the rates that go along with them.
Thank you.
Just one more question about back to the elevator. So the repairs are scheduled to be finished in April? Okay.
Yes.
And do we have any concern to whether or not that's actually going to happen? It's the part.
Not
they
that I've
started on
heard, not that I've heard from the facilities manager.
Okay. And the reason I ask, I'm kind of wondering is, if it were to take longer, would we be pushing some of that cost into the next fiscal year, or are we going to cover all of the cost within this current fiscal year?
It is possible that we could see some costs in the next fiscal year if the work gets drawn out that far, but I really, really hope that that's not the case. I mean, we have no
Yeah.
reason to believe that it would take that long. You know,
I'm manifesting positive vibes about the elevator.
All right, any other discussion regarding the consent agenda? Or excuse me, the finance memo? Okay, thank you. Treasurer's report? Okay. Is that along with the capital fund as well? Yes. Any questions regarding the treasurer report or the capital fund? Any discussion? Cash investment summary? Thank you. All right, we're going down to trustees reporting out.
Yeah, so last month I attended the Michael Hurst Jazz Quartet performance at the Arbor Hill branch. I believe it was part of the Black History Month programming, so it was a nice experience, well attended. There were from infants in car seat type structures all the way to our senior members of our community, so it was a good broad group in attendance. I would say upwards of 30 people came through in that course of an hour, so really enjoyed it.
Thank you. Any other trustees? Going down to the Upper Hudson Library.
Do we have a policy and governance committee report? Did we skip that or?
Yeah. Right, this was last month,
Yeah.
where we discussed it.
Oh my goodness. We met on February 14th and the director, reported that that it looks promising for libraries statewide because the governor had included an increase in the budget. He also shared with us that they have a long-term employee who is retiring after 28 years, but they're pretty excited about the fact that he has started a consulting services and will be continuing to work with Upper Hudson. So services that have been provided through his work efforts will continue. So they were pretty pleased about that. And we approved a resolution that's going to be presented to him during his retirement party, recognizing all the hard work that he's done. Our annual celebration for Upper Hudson is going to be on June 12th, and we're looking for a place, a venue, and so they're open to suggestions. So if anyone has any ideas about where we would like to be for the celebration in Albany is what we're aiming for, we'd like to have recommendations. The only committee that met was the finance committee, and the purchase journal for January was approved, and the budget for 2023 was reconciled. And pretty much that was it. The rest of the evening was folk just sharing experiences about what was going on in their communities. But pretty much that was it.
Like you had a full meeting. Thank you. Any upcoming meetings? Yes.
So nominating committee is meeting on April 1st. It's the first Monday at 6 p.m. And then on April 10th, which will be the Wednesday following our next board meeting, in the evening is the trustee information session at Arbor Hill. So that's for the public to come and join us and ask us questions and learn about being a trustee and think about running. Similarly, later that week, Saturday morning, the 13th at 10 in the morning is going to be another info session at Pine Hills. Everyone trustee wise, not everyone in the, public audience is welcome to come and learn about being a trustee. All trustees are invited to come and be part of this and share your experience for the people looking at running.
Now that the announcement has been made about the open positions, do we have any way to tell how many people have downloaded information or?
No, we don't have a way to find out how many people have downloaded information, but I know anecdotally that some people have.
Trustee Barnum, did you have a question?
Yeah, just quick question. Do you have sufficient attendance at both of the trustee information sessions? Do you know?
I have not gotten that far. I mean, that said, if someone's schedule opens up and you don't think you're going to be able to come, and then, oh, hey, something got canceled, just because we haven't organized that you are going to be coming doesn't mean that you can't come. I really think it's a more the merrier. So, because we all have different experiences and things we can share with folks.
Thank you. Yep.
Will we be given an agenda for the flow of the meeting prior to it?
Yeah, so there's a presentation that that was used at the previous sessions. It's been distributed distributed to the nominating committee. And we're reviewing that for potential changes and updates. But yes, it'll basically be the presentation and question and answer, but there will be a specific formal agenda that we share with everyone ahead of time.
Can I very quickly go back to one? Trustee Wei, your report, you mentioned that you're looking for suggestions of locations. Should we give those suggestions to you? And can you, do you know how big of a location you're looking for? What the capacity would be?
I do not know how big a location. We've had it, at other libraries. I think, let me see. Think about maybe around 200 people.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
But just as soon as you have an idea, just send it and I'll send it on.
Okay.
Okay.
I do a lot of event planning, so I probably have a few ideas for you, so I will send them your way.
Yay, wonderful. Thank you. Soon as you can get them to me, I will happily pass them on.
No problem.
Okay.
Thank you. Any other questions regarding the committees? So moving along, we'll go to executive director's report.
Okay, I want to first give staff a huge shout out about February school vacation week. During this year's school vacation week, we did what we do best. We offered really fantastic programs based in creativity, in music, hands-on multimedia art, other activities. And we saw a lot of folks come out. Library kids and their families came out for school break fun. Our HR generalist, Arena Dacey, is making regular weekly visits to the branches office hours, where any staff member could stop in and ask about employee benefits and other HR related matters. And this is sort of what we were really hoping for when we hired Arena to this role. Really hoping that staff could see and feel better supported. Just a job with staff. And on the operations side, we continue to investigate how to create a safer, more welcoming library. Rearranging seating on the first floor here at Washington Avenue. You see that the seating arrangements to the right of the reference desk are a little different than maybe the last time you came in. We removed the seating, the number of seats and tables have actually increased, but we moved most of the seating to the area next to the reference desk so that the sight lines are good between staff and the patrons who are enjoying the library over there. Moved the seating from the middle of the library so that when you're walking through, you see that the congregate seating is kind of in one area. It's worked out well so far. We're getting good feedback from staff. We are also meeting with different representatives in the city, including representatives from the city school district, to talk about the structure of their safety and security personnel within their operations, because we're not the only ones who are seeing some increases in incidents at certain locations. So we met with the essentially the safety and security director of the city school district, a gentleman by the name of Vincent Thompson, and his team, and learned about how the school kids in Albany are kept safe in the day with hall monitors and the different levels of staffing involved. And we're really looking at those models to see what we can learn and what we can apply. Moving on to the incident reports section. We still had a high level of incidents in February, but not as high as last February, so that's good. I also think that what we're seeing in terms of the numbers of incidents that are being reported is a change in the culture of APL and how APL staff are actually feeling empowered to complete incident reports about the things that happen in the library. So I think I want to give credit to the safety team for encouraging staff and supporting staff in documenting the incidents that happen in the library so that we can follow up, so that we can thank staff for the actions that they've taken, so that we can course correct where course correction is needed. And I think that's been a good thing for all. Plenty of outreach activities going on. We also met with the New York State Writers Institute to discuss a future Big Read partnership, which is exciting. We're partnering with HVCC this year for a Big Read. The activities will actually take place in 2025, but Friends and Foundation have determined a date for their next Literary Legends Gala. So I just wanted to mention that. So you can put it on your calendars. It's going to be Saturday, October 19th. And it's going to be back at Cafe Madison for the second year in a row. And there are some really fantastic events coming up at the library. So I would just call your attention to our next installation of the Indielands pop-up movie series with WMHT. Tomorrow evening, Matter of Mine is going to be shown. It's a documentary about people with Parkinson's and what they're doing to battle that disease. We've got a conversation with authors Alice Green and Amy Godine with New York State Writers Institute, March 14th at Washington Ave. And we have an eclipse. We have lots of eclipse things going on at the library, but eclipse experience with Adirondack Experience Museum when day turns to night will be a really cool virtual program. And we're also supporting the eclipse by an eclipse glasses giveaway, which you'll learn about in the program guide. But yeah, lots going on around the eclipse. So those are the highlights that I wanted to call out. Tax assistance continues. We continue to do plenty of outreach to schools. We're looking forward to Tulip Fest. We're going to be returning to pre-pandemic levels of full participation on the part of the library. So we're going to have tent, table, at different locations, prominent location, getting better traffic. And I think, yeah, those are the highlights I wanted to cover. Of course, there's tons going on in our branches all the time, and that's all listed under the services report outs. And just so you know, especially Trustee Brzezinski, who's new, the services report outs, like for each branch, are contributed by the branch manager. So all of those highlights are compiled by the branch managers at each respective branch.
Trustee.
I had a trustee or a library activity that I forgot to mention. I got reminded by Andrea talking about the seating. I was working remotely doing paperwork one day, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to go into the library and see what it's like to be like doing things here, because that's not, I've gone to study rooms and things, but I've not just like worked at a table before, and I couldn't. Every table was full of people here at Washington Ave. So I just wanted to give it a shout out that it is being well used from my one data point.
Thank you. I just had a comment that the Washington Avenue branch will be closed on Saturday because of St. Patrick's Day. Does that still move forward?
Yes. And we've posted signage, and we continue to push that out on social media as well, and remind people that that of the other branch locations that are going to be open and having programs. And so that's how we're addressing it.
I think that's what will affect attendance for the St. Patrick's Day, but it's also school break for most of the colleges in the area, so they will not be attending. There will be one. They did actually theirs last weekend. They had their cakes and eggs last weekend. Yes, that's what, yeah, they showed up unannounced, unexpected, at his old haunt, at his old house. That was nice. All right, thank you for the report. Any questions on the report?
Last year we had approved, or last month, we'd approved your application to be part of the safety task force. Do you have any updates with that?
No, I haven't heard anything yet.
Okay.
All right, monthly statistics.
We continue to see positive momentum across our circulation, door count, and computer use statistics, where we're trending above the last 3 years' numbers, and programming and room use continue to trend above pre-pandemic numbers. So everything's headed in the right direction, except for the incident reports, which you know all about. Thank you.
You. Informational items. That was included in your director's report.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. All right, then, unfinished business, bylaws.
Policy and Governance Committee put forth the bylaws for vote for tonight's meeting. There are no changes. Bylaws were reviewed, and we can go ahead and take a vote on the bylaws.
So we make,
Any-
yeah,
go ahead.
no, I was gonna say, we make, P&G made a recommendation for the bylaws. Do I get a second?
And Madam President, I sent an email out to the board right before the meeting, just giving you the option to not actually vote on this and rely on the P&G recommendation, since they were making no changes. I don't think there's any reason you can't vote, but I just don't think it's necessary if you don't want to.
Think we should vote. Put it, and then review, I'm sorry. No. I think we should definitely have a vote on these. What do you think?
So again, as Bob mentioned, but P&G, we would prefer, if we had a vote, the chair and the committee put out a recommendation, so we made the motion. We just need a second.
Second. Thank you.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Unopposed, any opposed? All right, all, it carries, motion carries unanimously. All in favor, thank you. I'm sorry. I use my glasses, can't see. All right, we have the resolution for the this is a draft. You see, we discussed that last month in regards to the senior exemption. So this is the resolution.
Council, do you want to speak to the resolution?
Absolutely. I need to get it up on my screen. Just give me a second. So this is the same resolution that the board saw. Well, hang on.
It was February 13th.
Yeah, did we put the updated resolution on, or is it still the one with the draft watermark?
It is the one with the draft watermark, but was there a change between the draft one and this one?
Yes, yeah. No, I sent it to you before the meeting started, but it's okay. We can go over it. So the resolution is the same resolution that was before you previously, except that the blanks have been filled in. And so the numbers in the very last decretal are 681 checks. And the total amount that will be paid out is $62,396.22. Those figures have both been verified with the City School District of Albany, who has assisted the library staff with the calculations. We have gotten the data that we need to issue those checks. Adam Stump, I'll let him speak to this, but he got 2 Excel files that he has to combine. We are going to draft a cover letter that will allow him to mail merge a letter with the checks. And that letter will just very, very briefly explain that the check is as a result of the library's adoption of the senior exemption for 2023-24. And, I'll let Adam speak to process, but, now if we assume the board passes this tonight, within the next 60 days, we should be able to get everything processed and paid.
Yeah, I'll say for my part, I have all the data I need to get started with this. Right now, it's sort of just a logistical matter of combining all the data I have into one spreadsheet, formatted in a certain way, so it can be uploaded into our financial software effectively. I'm probably gonna have to connect with our software reps in order to do that. So hopefully it's a simple process, but once that piece gets completed, then it's just a matter of printing and mailing the 681 checks.
So if anybody has any questions about the resolution itself, I'd be happy to answer them. But essentially what you're doing is adopting the resolution as has been discussed previously and authorizing the issuance of the payments in accordance with the new exemption amounts.
I just had a question and a curiosity. Do you know offhand, I mean, ballpark, what is the highest check that you're paying out? I was just curious.
Adam, I can look that up if you don't have it.
Yeah.
in front of you.
Sorry, I have it in front of me here. The highest is just over $300. The lowest is $1.81.
Okay, great. You anticipated my other question. Thank you. All right, great. Thank you so much.
I have a quick question. This is Trustee West. Is the information regarding the actual recipients, is that public information? The 681 people, is that is it public information? Would it be
Would it be subject to FOIL? Probably, yes. There might be a personal privacy exception that would apply. We'd have to look at that in the nature of the question. But theoretically, tax rolls, tax bills, the nature of whether someone's paid their taxes or not is typically public information, yes.
Right, and if it's foilable, we could have the public information, meaning the names and not necessarily their addresses. That was a question. So.
That would be one way to do it, although I don't know that there'd be a distinction between names and addresses if there wasn't a personal privacy exception in the in the Freedom of Information Law.
Thank you.
And Trustee Roshinsky, just because I'm new, quick question. So this is because of a change in policy that we have, that we're making these reimbursements. Is that correct?
Not exactly. Can go into the whole history with you if you want, but the legislature passed a change to a statute that allows municipalities to grant an exemption to people. They changed the qualifying income levels. That change was not adopted by the school district or the library in advance of the taxable status date last year. And so the bills for the school district and the library went out without a reflection of the new income levels. The board decided last fall to pursue reimbursement of pursue issuance of refunds for people who were affected by this, much like the school district did in December. And so that's what this is about. It's basically adherence to a new income standard that's applicable to people who are qualified to receive this exemption.
Okay. And so have we already kind of accounted for this within budgeting for the year, or does this affect the current budget?
We've had to deal with that, but I'll let Adam and Andrea answer the specifics.
Yeah, we did have to absorb this into our current year budget, and we certainly didn't set aside any money for it, but Adam, do you want to speak more to what line this is coming out of?
So we're essentially just reducing, it was factored into the budget modification. So the modified budget we're working off of now factors that in, and it's just a reduction to the operating tax levy line.
You.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Before we vote on accepting the resolution? Okay, thank you. Do I have a motion on the floor to accept the resolution?
Trustee West, I move that we accept the resolution.
Oh, sorry, second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Unopposed? Any opposed? Right, the motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
And President Pryor, that was trustee West, seconded by trustee Robinson?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Oh, yeah, because that's in the resolution.
All right. So we'll move on to new business. The tax cap aura.
So council will be able to describe a little bit better why the board is encouraged to do this each year, but basically it states that the Board of Trustees overrides for the purpose of the APL 2025 fiscal year budget that the tax levy limit imposed by municipal law, even though we are not actually recommending the tax cap limit. It's a safety measure. Bob, do you want to say anything more about that?
Yeah, I mean, that's a succinct explanation that if you don't pass this and that there is some error in the calculation of the tax cap, you are not going to be able to calculate, or you're not going to be able to collect your full levy. You're going to be limited to whatever the later calculation of the levy limit is. By passing this, you'll be able to collect your full levy, even if there's an error in calculation of the limit.
Just a quick question in reference to that, but that's collecting the full levy, even if there's not an increase in the levy? And the
That's true. In that case, it really is a belt and suspenders, trustee Goss. You're absolutely right. If there's no increase, then there's still certain circumstances that this could come into effect, but it becomes much more limited.
I almost feel like maybe we should discuss the budget before we vote on whether we want to approve the tax cap levy.
That makes a lot of sense, but if you are going to approve a budget, you have to pass this before you do it, or this will be inoperative. So it's okay to have that discussion first, and I understand why you'd want to, but we just have to make sure that we pass these resolutions in this order to make this effective.
Right.
Okay. All right, thank you. Is there a motion on the floor to approve the tax levy? The tax cap?
To possibly have discussion on the
For-
budget.
on the
before
budget
we
first,
Vote on
before-
the levy.
Yes.
Is anybody opposed to that?
And then we'll come back to the tax cap levy after the discussion in regards to the budget, which is next on the agenda. All right, so we'll table the tax cap levy for a moment while we discuss the budget.
Okay, so at the last special budget meeting on February 27th, Adam Stump and myself took the board through the FY25 budget memo that explains all of the different highlights of this budget proposal. That document is available in the the February 27th meeting agenda and materials associated with it. So what you see in front of you tonight is just the budget proposal on its own and the tax impact document on its own. And yeah, I invite any additional questions that you may have? There were no questions at last meetings, or at the last meeting, and I've received no questions in the intervening time, but if you have questions tonight, I'm happy to address them.
I had a question. I know that we're requesting the 2%, correct? Okay. Last year, I think we did 2% as well, 2.5.
Last year it was 4.58%.
Okay, 4.5. Okay, so this year, so are we, accumulating like after, say, next year, after within the 5 years, we've come up to 10%? I mean, just throwing it out there. If it was 4.2 last year, 2.5 this year, whatever, to 7. And then next year, we're going to be asking again the taxpayers, because the reason why I'm bringing this up, because I know for most homeowners, they did get a new assessment
Yes, they did.
in their property taxes.
Mhm.
And so that could, cause a hardship. So I'm just wondering, because I know, I don't want to keep nickel and diming if we're not asking what we really want. I know that we have the tax levy. We don't go over the tax cap, but if we're going back to the well each and every year, it does become ingenuous.
Well, I hear that. My concern is actually what happens if a lot of people, as I suspect they might, protest their new assessment, their new property value assessments. If they do protest the property value assessments, there is a strong chance that we will get those tax cert bills next year. So there's a chance that the library could see you know how we haven't seen those tax cert bills for the last few years. That's one of the reasons why we've dropped the tax cert line from 100,000 down to 50,000 for fiscal 25. I'm actually concerned that we might have to address that in the modification and move it back up higher, because we might see a lot of folks saying, you know what, this assessment is wrong, and I, challenge the city on it. So that's what the outcome of this assessment could be. And we want to make sure that we're set up in a strong financial position in the event that that happens, let alone the fact that we need this increase to address the contractual increases that we've made to salaries through the new contract that we negotiated with the union.
So I just have a couple of things to address. Thank you, President Pryor, for bringing up the assessments as well. I think it's, and a lot of the other issues you brought up, I think is important that we have an honest conversation about this, because we've been going back and forth in reference to the budget increase for a while now. I remember a couple years ago, there was like 10% on the, as one of the proposals, broken down to the 4, broken down to the 2. So there were different percentages of the proposal that we had an option of. Some of the conversation that was happening during that time, well, what is the real number you're actually trying to get to? Continuing to go back, as Trustee Pryor said, nickel and diming the residents, the taxpayers, it does come off as disingenuous, and it does come off as us as a board, because we all essentially have to take accountability for it, but as dishonest. So I don't know anywhere where it wouldn't come off as dishonest if you're going to borrow money and you say, hey, well, I only need $5 to pay my bill and then I'll be good. And then you come back and say, hey, well, I need another $10 to pay my bill, when you're really trying to get to 20. Right, in the first place. So why not ask for the 20 in the first place if that's honestly where you're trying to get to? So it just really comes off as disingenuous and almost a mismanagement of money if we've already asked the residents, the taxpayers, for this increase as well. One of the things that I saw with this, there is this proposal with the 2.5 increase. I didn't see a comparison like side by side with the regular what we're at now. Is that
It's a 2% increase, and
for the proposal, correct?
yeah, on page 3 of the budget proposal, you'll see the last year to this year comparison. And I just want to point out a couple things. So last year, the recommendation was to go for the 4.5% increase, in part because that was under the tax cap. Anything that requires an override is a much bigger ask. And so to your point, trustee Gods, going forward, it was actually, I think, a 20% increase to get us to where we would love to be in terms of staffing and operations, digital content, all that good stuff. That would have been an enormous ask for the community. The last time the library asked the community for a large increase was in 2012. The library for
So I'm,
okay, and then it came down to, it came down to 15, I think, from wherever it started. So that was in association with the branch improvement plan that was going on at the time, which was, of course, a major expansion of APL.
so I'm not sure where the disconnect is, and I think we had a lot of conversation over the years in referencing to this increase, what the increase would be utilized for. Recruitment and retention was one of those things. We did understand that there was a contract on the table when asked about a tangible plan in reference to how we're spending this money, something tangible that we could see even before we can vote on it. Because I specifically asked for that. That was never given. When we're talking about recruitment and the accounting for the salaries, that was a talking point for the last increase. So when I was asking, well, what number are we really trying to get to for these salaries so we can see ourselves whole with these increases that are happening because we are in negotiations, this was some really evasive information that we were never really able to get to. Since this increase has happened, we've seen a decrease in hours for certain libraries. We've seen a decrease in programming for certain libraries. So I'm struggling to find a justification to ask taxpayers for more money. I'll be honest, I don't fully understand the tax cert process or what have you. And the assessments are definitely a hardship, but to ask for more money because a what if situation, as opposed to us being able to comparison and see what a budget would look like if we didn't do an increase. The budget we're looking at is just strictly a 2% increase. Did I miss the budget with no increase? Did I miss that?
No, and I mean,
Oh, okay.
in response to your comments, since we've changed the hours, in this fiscal year, we're seeing higher program attendance numbers, higher attendance numbers on weekends than we saw in 2019, which I think points to some positive indicators around library use.
I think that is a little bit deceptive when other factors are not included. So we can't, right now, no one has the time or the patience, I think, really to talk about an inclusive conversation in reference to attendance. I'm just going off for overall general consensus. And I know there are libraries who lost hours. There are libraries who lost programming. So, I mean, last meeting, you said one of the things you're going to be able to do is bring some programming and some hours, but how do you take something away from a library and then stronghold them and say, okay, well, now with this increase, I can bring this back to you? That it just seems very extremely disingenuous. And I think an increase has to be something that everyone can get on board with. I can't personally promote this increase, whether we vote yes or no. I personally can't promote that.
What this increase includes is a part-time library assistant for Arbor Hill West Hill, who's dedicated to youth services. Arbor Hill West Hill is a library that we want to be increasing programming for, and we can't do that with the existing staff. And that's the reason why we've included that in this proposed budget.
Right. So recruitment and retention was always a goal of a focus point of your you even coming on board. So now almost to stronghold us into saying, well, I need an increase to provide this this new position that was something that we could have even previously discussed when that information was being asked for. Now at the point where we're asking for money, now we're going to focus on, I need a new program assistant at Arbor Hill. It just doesn't seem it seems just so disingenuous. I'll be honest. It really does.
Can I speak up at this moment? I think we need to be careful in the way that we're talking about this, in referencing that this is just the library director making this request. I think that certainly the finance committee, we have a responsibility for that as well. We met, we talked through every line. I think that it was, that everyone that works on the budget.
So let's,
for this
okay, so
has
let's stop
been-
right there. Okay, I hear where you're going with it. So let's stop right there. Never at any point did I negate or make mention of the time and dedication that everyone has put into preparing a new budget and looking at budget items and doing what they can to come up with something cohesive to present to the board. That has never been an issue. As someone who's been on the board for quite some time, even before I was a trustee, attending meetings and hearing the discussion about budget, about tax increases, the reasons for those tax increases, the campaign and talking points to get the tax increase. I think, yeah, we do have to be careful to uphold the promises we made to people in reference to get this increase. So if we're talking about being careful, I think we need to be careful to stand on our word as people who were previously here, previously voted on budgets. We have several people here who were in the room, who heard the conversation. We have very detailed online, offline conversations about these things. So when you're making these sweeping statements about we need to be careful, I'm being very careful to try to uphold what was already promised to the residents, to the taxpayers in reference to us getting this increase and what would be done with the money once we got that increase. You weren't part of those conversations, so I understand how it may look, but these are conversations that many people even can review in their own memory bank as opposed to going and watching the video. They were part of the discussion. So I'm speaking of a person who was part of the discussion. Okay,
So I guess my question is, what is the information that you feel like you're still missing to be comfortable?
I'm not missing anything. I'm not comfortable with this increase.
Okay.
So I'm not missing anything.
Because you kind of made reference to, like, you feel like you weren't getting some of the information that you were hoping to get about.
So once again, if there's a history here on this board and there's been things that have already been discussed, things that have already been requested, at the point where now we're asking for more money for these things is not the time to hash out why certain things didn't get delivered a year ago, right? So this is not the time for that discussion. Maybe we can schedule some time, but I'm sure everyone would like to go home, and there's many people, not just myself, who are uncomfortable with this increase. I'll speak up in reference to several things about this increase, but as someone, like I said, who's been part of the conversation, who has, I appreciate all the work the Audit and Finance Committee does. I appreciate the work of everyone on this board who can respect other trustees and the people who work here. I have no problem with that, but it doesn't change us having an opinion and having a responsibility, a due diligence, and to keep our word that we make to taxpayers. We are elected officials. We are elected by the people to be here to represent them. I take that very seriously. I don't want to be the one going out in the community and asking for money. And when they say, why did my library get closed? Those are questions that I get asked. So that I have to go defend something that I don't agree with. So those are real conversations in real life that are happening from the people who elected everybody to be here. So.
Thank you, trustee Gauze.
No problem.
Yes, trustee West?
I have one question. It's a two-part. So I'm looking at the budget and it looks like I am in the under expenditures. And it looks like, yep, okay, so I'm looking at fiscal year 24 and fiscal year 25. So salaries are increasing full-time, part-time, which in effect would make the New York State retirement contribution increase, payroll taxes and processing fees increase. But I'm a little lost as to how the benefits don't increase unless employee benefits is a flat dollar amount and not a percentage of the, it's not a percentage. Is it a percentage or a flat dollar?
Adam can speak a little bit better to the slide, but I believe it has something to do with the variability of the line as well as, because our payroll fluctuates, but Adam, would you like to fill in?
Sure. So yeah, that line is not based on a percentage, the way that say payroll taxes is. It is based on a flat cost. The majority of it is health insurance for full-time employees. That's actually been our budget for the last couple of years. We've ended the year under budget, the last couple of years in that line, mainly due to full-time vacancies. So seeing as how we've remained under budget in that line, for several years now, we didn't see fit to increase it. Our full-time staffing model hasn't increased since last year, so if we don't have any vacancies throughout the year, then yes, we could get close to hitting that budget, if not go over, but we can deal with that during a modification. So in any case, that's why we didn't increase it. And to answer your question, it is not based on a percentage.
So, thank you for that, Adam. So in your contracts, when it talks about benefits for employees, it's a flat dollar amount in the contracts?
No, they have choice of different insurance plans, and all those plans have sort of flat costs associated with them, depending on the level of coverage they choose.
I know I'm in the weeds and it sounds like I'm beating a dead horse. So if I make $50,000 and I choose a family plan, it's usually a percentage of, say, $2,000 for the cost of the benefits.
Okay, yes, that is correct. That is how our.
So that's why I was like I'm just checking to see, it just seems a little weird that amount would not
So that's
fluctuate with the other amounts.
employee contributions are based on a percentage, contractually agreed upon percentage based on their salary. But that doesn't necessarily correspond with the employee benefits line. That represents the total cost of each employee's plan, so the 100% cost of each employee's plan. So that is only going to vary if they select a single plan, a family plan.
Right, I was more or less talking about the employer related costs, not what the employee pays, but what the employer pays based on the employees. But you answered my question. Thank you so much. Sure.
Any other discussion in reference to the budget?
I do have a question. So with the tax cert being one of those talking points, if our taxpayers, if there is an increase, our taxpayers going to be refunded money with the difference of what could have, should have, would have?
That's a great question. Bob, can you speak to tax cert payments and how they work in terms of a timeline?
I can give you some highlights, but it's really, really impossible to give you any general rules because residential challenges follow a completely different process than commercial challenges. The commercial challenges are largely what has driven your tax certiorari line. Residential challenges most often get resolved at the Board of Assessment review, which means that they will be reflected in the September tax bills. A homeowner does have the right to seek a review of that through either Article 7 or the small claims assessment review process. But as a general rule, those are such small changes that you'd really need a lot of them to have any material effect on the library's tax cert line. The ones that matter for you typically are the commercial ones, the ones on business properties, and those tend to take a lot longer to resolve. And so those are the ones that often lead to refunds during the assessment review process. And oftentimes those refunds won't even be in the tax year that they're claiming a challenge for. They can come many years after the fact due to the length of time that it takes to pursue the litigation. So theoretically, a revaluation like the one that the city just did does have a relationship with the number of tax certiorari's that get filed. but it's a little too soon to know what that impact's going to be. And as I understand it, there was some shift in the city this year as to where tax burdens went. Some parcels went up significantly, others that had been up in prior years went down. So it's possible that the net changes to the commercial base aren't significant. I just don't know enough about the data yet to be able to give you any sense of what you would expect for a trend.
Very important information. Thank you.
Thank you.
It sounds like either way in this year, we increase, no increase, it wouldn't matter for this fiscal year.
Okay, any other questions in regards to the budget?
Sorry, I don't have a question, and I can't speak a lot because air is not something that's promising to me right now. I just don't feel comfortable with asking for the 2% just because of what we asked for last year. And I just wanted to put that on the record, like I'm not comfortable with it.
Thank you.
Thank you. There is okay, so we have to go back to you had another question? Oh, I'm sorry.
If we don't pass this budget, or we do pass this budget and the taxpayers don't approve it, what are the contingency plans?
I honestly don't know that that's happened. Bob, what would happen if the
Well,
board does not?
So
vote
the
on
levy
budget
doesn't
tonight?
change, right? The levy that you have this year, the 7,710,529 would be collected for next year. So you'd have the same amount of money as you do this year. And that would continue unless and until it gets changed by the voters. So the question is what $154,211 would you cut out of the budget to make sure that you stayed balanced? And I would defer to the finance committee and to staff to figure that out.
So this is also about use of fund balance. The budget that we're presenting with a 2% increase still requires a good amount of fund balance, a six-figure amount of fund balance. I'm looking for the actual number. It is 561,186. So that's what we would have to actually use of our unassigned fund balance in order to account for all of the expenses that we have projected for fiscal 25.
But we're not looking at a comparison of fiscal year 25 at the current tax levy. This is to even be able to have a visual comparison. This is a proposed budget, just a proposed budget of the 2% with the numbers that we're looking at. I think if you have a budget that at the same tax levy, some of these other numbers would be moved around. It would be a different budget.
Yeah, I mean, we might not be able to pay all of our employees or pay for materials and services.
I think that's very drastic.
Well, I mean, but in all honesty, that would be one of the consequences we would have to look at. I mean, that would represent a pretty major impact. We haven't accounted for it. We've accounted for, paying everyone the salary that we've committed to in the contract. We've committed to all.
So with you continuing to use salary with the last talks with this budget, salary was something that was taken into account from my recollection when we discussed this previous increase. Salary was one of those things that was. So I just don't understand why that's such a strong. This is a 2%. A budget for a 2% increase is a budget for spending that you don't have, as opposed to comparison with a budget at the current tax levy.
The budget at the current tax levy doesn't account for all the increases that we have committed to for fiscal 25. I don't know how to put it another way. I mean, this budget,
I don't even
is
see a
not-
comparison for that is my point. I don't even see a comparison for the two, for the fiscal year current tax levy, fiscal year increase proposed tax levy. That's all I'm saying. I don't see that.
look at
On
page,
page three.
page 3
On
of,
page 3.
of the budget, because that's where we show the fiscal 24 budget approved and the fiscal 25 budget proposed, and that might
Right,
help with.
so, right, so are you saying that the fiscal year 24 budget would be the exact same expenditure for fiscal year 25 if there's no increase?
Correct.
Because I asked that before.
Yes, that's right.
Well, are there, if we didn't increase, like if we didn't ask for the 2%, and the FY 24 budget was the same size, because of contractual agreements that you have made with staff, would you have to then move some other things
That's my
around? I'm
point.
guessing.
That's my point. You would start with for example, you have the same amount of money, you would start with salaries and where can I move money around? That's what I'm saying. I don't see a fiscal year 25 proposal next to a proposed increase for fiscal year 25. To say that fiscal year 24 will be the same as fiscal year 25 is not the same because there's different obligations. So to see the same amount of money distributed differently to account for those obligations in comparison with a fiscal year 25 proposal would give us better information to be able to accurately compare fiscal year 25 if proposed fiscal year 25 with an increase.
So the fiscal year 25 column on page 3 of that document, that
Mm-hmm.
the expenditure totals represent what we expect that we will need to cover our operating costs as they are right now. So if we didn't adopt an increase of any kind and just stayed flat,
Mm-hmm.
we would use that 154,000 we would get from the tax increase, and that would either have to be applied to the fund balance usage, which would mean we need to essentially lose over $700,000 in order to balance the budget, or we'd have to make cuts to various lines. There's only so many lines we can really cut without doing something drastic like cutting hours or eliminating positions for the staffing model. I don't think that's on the table.
Right, so does it seem to be, if we've already gotten an increase and these were the same, and this is a question for you, Adam, if this is the same essentially situation we were in last year, where we were asking for 4.5% and the things that were asked for weren't met, right? So because we lost hours, we lost, what have you. I guess that's debatable. I don't see how, but either way, it seems to be a mismanagement somewhere. If you're saying now, if we didn't have an increase, we're going to be losing all this stuff, all these items, we would have to make so many cuts to account for an increase we don't have.
So I think our increases that are under the tax cap are often in line with the increases that we project in expenses year to year. Last year, those increases were a little bigger because of our our CSEA contracts. We had 6% and 4% raises to all staff covered under the contract. It's larger than the raises we're obligated to give next couple of years. I mean, as you can see, our total expenses increased about 3.5% over last year's budget.
So can I just ask you a question about that right there, though, so with the CSEA, right, with the contracts, right? So if you ask for the increase to cover the salary increases, right? And we already got the increase to cover the salary, right? So why would that same increase not be somewhat sufficient going forward to sustain those increases that you already made? You've already had those. And if you need to be able to sustain that increase, that 4.5 increase, why not ask for the same question we're back at last year? Why not ask for really the 7% increase that you want, the 10% increase that you really want, as opposed to nickel and diming? Because it doesn't make sense to hire people you can't afford. Essentially, is what I don't understand that part.
The 4.5% increase that was asked for last year, as part of as under the tax cap, helped us address the 4% and 6% increases that we saw to the union salaries across the library. This year, a 2.5% increase is being applied to the union salaries across the library. So the costs of salaries and the costs associated with running the library increase every year, with the notable exception of the LED lighting, decreasing our electricity bills. But generally speaking, the cost of running the library increases year over year, which is part of the reason why it does make sense to ask for an increase.
So when we had this, my point is when we had this conversation, we spoke about what the impacts would be, what the future impact would be in reference to how much more money would you need. When you look at a budget, not only did you look at it for this year, especially when you're asking for an increase, but potentially how would this impact us in future years? It's not news to anyone that cost of living increase, these things, salaries increase, you're going to have those increases. So when we're asking in general, we're asking for this 4.5% or whatever it was last year, what typically do you see us getting at, or what will we need to sustain us so we don't have to ask for an increase in the next year? Those were specific conversations that we had. So now we're back at this same horse again, asking for, we're going through the same exact conversation we had last time.
I mean, I guess it sort of becomes a philosophical discussion about, which is the preferable option to go for small increases under the tax cap to keep up with your cost of living, inflationary costs that, we see every year. Our expenses are going to increase every year. And there's nothing we can do about it unless we make drastic cuts.
Right, but we
Or
didn't,
a big increase over at the tax cap.
but we didn't go for an increase for years. Well,
Yeah, I would argue that
So-
that was not the greatest plan because
not saying it wasn't the greatest plan. My point is that every year to ask for an increase every year to raise the tax levy every year is not an ideal situation to be in. Just the same as you don't want to go 100 years without raising the tax levy. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying something realistic that you can give people an idea of what your future projections are. To say that I just need this increase right now and we're good, and then next year you're gonna ask for more money, next year you're gonna ask for more money, it's just not mathing to me. I don't know about anybody else. It's just not math.
Oh, I'm just going to interject right now. Thank you in respect of time. Thank you,
Absolutely.
trustee Gauze, for your comments. And obviously, we're not going to be able to vote on this right now. I mean, if you guys want to take a vote, but there's more questions. And my question is, if we do not vote today, how soon do we need to vote or come to some consensus before putting it to the voters, the taxpayers in May?
The school district needs to start publishing their legal notice 45 days before that election. They typically tell us that they need our information within 60 days of that election. So today is the 12th. That means that they typically need our stuff by the 18th. So you'd have to have another board meeting between now and the 18th.
Yes.
March.
Anybody
is
feel
Monday.
comfortable voting tonight? I'm comfortable with it. I mean, we can take a poll to see who's comfortable voting tonight.
Does everybody feel comfortable with voting tonight?
The other thing first.
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
right, but I want to know
That's-
before we go to the next thing.
Yeah.
I mean, the one above.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yep. So, or do you want to have a meeting on March 18th?
No, I personally, I don't. I'm okay with voting tonight. Is it, or does anyone else? I mean, we could go in the room.
Okay, we'll just go right back to tax cap override and vote on that. And then we'll go.
Any objections? Sounds like a plan.
Okay, thank you. All right, so flipping back to tax cap override. It's a resolution. Yeah, I have a motion to accept, or vote on any other discussion on the tax cap.
Trustee Roshinsky, I'll motion to accept the tax cap override.
All in favor?
Do you have
Aye.
a second?
Yes. Trustee Wang.
Okay, great. Thank you. Sorry.
One opposed. I'm opposed.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
I'm saying, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, so it's 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, one opposed, anybody got any opposed? Trustee West and trustee Goss. So motion carries, but
That was 6 in favor and 2 opposed?
yes.
Okay.
The resolution passes for the tax cap override. Thank you. Now we move on to that was the budget. Uh, Okay. The budget, the audit and finance committee recommending 2% tax levy increase for the fiscal year 25 for the library budget. Do I hear a second?
I'll second it. Trustee Mazinski.
Okay. All in favor?
This is the budget.
The
This is
budget.
The budget.
Yeah.
2, 3, 4, 5, 4, and any opposed?
Oh, the budget, yeah,
Yeah,
okay,
opposed.
sorry,
3 opposed, so 5 to 3, the budget carries. Thank you. Now, tax levy approval, the increase. There's a resolution.
Do we need to approve that separately since we approved the budget
Yes.
as written?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's a separate vote, a separate resolution. And the resolution that you have in front of you has a blank in it, but the figure that will be filled in there is $7,864,740. Is that correct, Mr. Stump?
Yes, that's correct. $7,864,740. Yes. Yeah, that's what I have.
That's correct.
Okay. There a motion on the floor to accept the tax increase for $7,864,740.
I move to adopt the resolution with 7,864,740 as tax levy amount.
Trustee Brushinsky, I'll second.
All in favor? 5, 6. 6, 4. Any opposed? 2 opposed. Trustee West and trustee Gloss.
And this is for the tax levy, isn't it?
Yeah.
Oh, no, sorry.
Yes, sir. Okay, so 5 to 3, trustee Robinson changed her vote to no. Still same result. The resolution for the tax increase for the levy.
Can I just encourage any of the board members who would like to know more about the budget, please reach out with questions, follow-up questions that you have. I'm happy to address them. Thank you.
Thank you. State annual report.
Okay, you have the report in front of you, and actually there should be a memo there. I must have missed uploading it, so just give me one moment, sorry.
I'm glad that there's a memo because this is an ugly, ugly document. There's a lot in there.
It's true, there's a lot in there. Okay, the memo is now uploaded, so you can open that in addition to the annual report itself. So this annual report is managed by the Upper Hudson Library System. I want to thank Melanie for doing the report. Melanie is responsible for all of the statistics and the data that goes into this report with the help of others on our administration team, of course. So it's a really very much a team effort. And I just want to thank Melanie for all of her assistance in putting it together and putting together this memo. The information is collected for the Department of Library Development, which is a state office, and for the Institute of Museum and Library Services, which is a federal institution. We've selected some key metrics for your review, and I'll just go through those key metrics. And please note that the state and the federal government requires numbers to be reported in a certain way, which sometimes differ from how we prefer to examine metrics in our monthly statistics report. Under library collection, our total uncatalogued books saw a significant increase for the first time in a few years due to a large donation of Albany High School yearbooks to the local history collection. Most of those items in the local history room are uncatalogued in the online Upper Hudson catalog, but are discoverable through finding aids that we have within the room, and they're available during open hours or by request. Non-electronic materials, including audio and video physical units, decreased this year again, as we continue to see a shift from physical audio and video materials to that of electronic, so digital, downloadable. Library programs, under library programs, policies and services, and library transactions. Library visits as well as programming numbers saw significant increases across the board as we continue to rebound from the pandemic. And some of those numbers, as I've called out, are even above 2019 numbers, which is good. The same can be said for the whole of the library transactions section. So we're continuing to see those trends going in the right direction. Under service outlet information, we still have an issue with the state not updating the square footage for North Albany. It doesn't really have any negative impact on us. It's just not accurate, which is not great. We always like to report accurate information, so we need the state's help to change that field, and we continue to remind them that it needs changing. Right, Melanie? Overall, the service outlet information is status quo and corresponds to stats and budget information that's already provided to the board in my executive director reports. Are there any questions on the annual report for 2023?
Thank you for that report. Okay, yep, and thank you for Upper Hudson for their involvement as well. All right, there's a motion. Would someone like to make a motion to accept APL's 2023 New York State annual report?
Trustee West, I move that we accept the New York State Annual Report for 2023.
Trustee Masinsky, I'll second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? No, the motion carries unanimously. Thank you. I'm sorry, what did you say? It's the earliest?
Are you on a microphone, Melanie?
It was a very detailed report.
And congratulations on getting it done. That looked like it was a lot of work, so.
Thank you. Got 54 pages. Uh, uh, yeah. All right, any public comment? I like how you look back there. Yes, thank you. That's why I like you look back there, see if there's anybody there. Thank you. There's no need for executive session. I'd like to make a motion or someone make a motion to adjourn.
Trustee West, I move that we adjourn.
Oh, prior to us adjourning, please, if you have not completed the quarterly report, Erica has some copies at the desk. So please feel free to fill those out and return. If she sent them to you electronically, please fill those out and return. Thank you.
Trustee West, move that we adjourn at 7:31 PM.
And may I have a second?
Trustee Masinsky, I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. The motion carries. We are adjourned. Thank you so much.
Everyone.
Paige, I just sent you the final resolutions for your signature.
Yeah, I was gonna ask if there are printed copies, Melanie, or
Now they're all updated in your PDF. So if you can just get them back to us tomorrow, that'll be great.